Do I look to you this morning as though I'm ready to conduct something? I mean, I'm dressed very particularly this morning. Did you notice? What would you expect me to be conducting if possibly? I even put the tie on to match this. I hate to be drawing attention to my own demeanour this morning, but I am wearing my, what I call my wedding tie, because this is my wedding suit that I use to conduct weddings in, and it happens to be the only warm suit I've got with me too. That's why I'm wearing it. But on Saturday night, I was in California and Santa Cruz, and I had been invited to conduct a wedding in Modesto. Now, if you know the distance from Santa Cruz to Modesto, you know you've got to come up 17 and over that hill and down into Santa Cruz and then pick up the roads to find your way to Modesto out in the valley there. And all of the well-intentioned people around me told me you can make this trip in 2 hours. I said to myself, it sometimes takes ages to get across the mountain, depending on the traffic. And you know, that Route 17 is one of the windiest roads in the country. But all of my well-intentioned friends told me 2 hours at a max. And one of them even wrote out the quickest and the shortest way to get from Santa Cruz to Modesto. So the lady who was getting married, who happened to be a former church member of mine from Las Vegas days, and she especially wanted me to conduct this wedding. I mean, these were some of the oldest friends I have, as well as you guys, by the way, in this country. And so I said, well, I'm conducting a seminar at Santa Cruz. This is not very convenient. She said, well, we'll have the wedding at a time convenient to you. So I just plucked a figure out of my head and I said, well, 7 o'clock Saturday night. If you're willing to wait till 7 o'clock, I will conduct the wedding. Which means I have to leave the seminar early, but luckily I have an associate there that could take over. So I said, I'll leave the seminar at 4 o'clock. That'll give me 3 hours to get to Modesto. And a young man who was also invited to the wedding said, well, could I travel with you and I will be your guide? I looked at him, I said, you know the way? He said, I know it like the palm of my hand. Well, I don't know the palm of my hand very well. You know, maybe you do, but I don't. And he said, I even have a map. Oh, I said, great. I feel better when there's a map. And so I agreed that he would accompany me. So at 4 o'clock we left the seminar at Santa Cruz. We had no problem getting over the mountain, fortunately. And then we had to make a decision. Now I know the way I would have gone, and I always arrive where I'm going, interestingly enough. And, you know, there's a lot hanging on this. Here's my old friend getting married, and I'm to perform the wedding, and they've delayed it in time for me to arrive. So I'm very conscious of the fact that this whole wedding has been planned around my schedule. So I'm making every effort to do the right thing. And this young man says to me, well, we should take 85. I said, well, I wouldn't go 85 if it was me. I would go down and pick up 280, which runs to 680, which connects to 580, and that'll take us there. He said, but this is a shortcut. And because we're coming up to the big sign, 85, you know, the big freeway, he said, exit here. He said, now, I'm your guide, remember. I'm navigating. You just focus on driving. Never again will I just focus on driving. So I chose not to look at the signs. I chose to allow the navigator to direct me. And when I'm driving alone, as you do, I watch every sign, don't you? But if I've got a navigator who knows absolutely where he's going, I don't check the signs. So I'm very casually driving along, and I took the exit to 85. And as soon as you exit, you're given 3 choices. And I wasn't watching. So I just saw 85 and I headed for it without realizing there were 3 divisions in the road at this moment. And I found myself heading into downtown San Jose. And I said to this guy, we should not be heading into San Jose. We need to be going north. I said, no, we're on the right track. I said, well, you know, I do know San Jose. I go there often enough. And I know that we ought not to be heading, especially Saturday night, downtown San Jose with all that ridiculous traffic they have there. I said, we have to get off this road. We need to do a U-turn. We've done something wrong. He said, well, there is another shortcut we can pick up from here. And I still trusted this guy. I said, well, what is it? He said, well, if we do a U-turn, which took us about 15 minutes to be able to do a U-turn here, he said, we can pick up 280. And I said, oh, thank you, 280. That's the road I wanted to be on. So we finally did a U-turn, and we're going back up, and then we saw the sign 280. Oh, I said, wonderful. I'm feeling so much more relieved already because I'm watching the time. But 280 gave us two choices. 280 north, which heads to San Francisco, I knew that, or 280 south. Now, to me, I'm heading north because I know that I've got to be heading north to get across to Modesto. And so I said to this guy, okay, we have two choices here. I said, it's quite simple, we're going north, and that was very confirming to me. Of course, there was only one problem, we should have gone south. Because if you take 280 south within half a mile, you pick up 680. And so we took 280 north. And I said to the guy, we are heading into downtown San Francisco. I've gone from downtown San Jose, and I'm in line to go across the Bay Bridge. And you know what the San Francisco traffic's like? About 10 miles short of the Bay Bridge, it was stopped, bumper to bumper, and I'm watching my watch. And this guy turns to me and he says, well, obviously we went the wrong way on 280. I said, do you have any further suggestions? I can't believe I trusted him a third time. And he said, well, we probably now should just go across the Bay Bridge. And on the other side of the Bay Bridge, we will pick up 580, which runs straight to Modesto. So he had a cell phone there. I said, call this friend of mine in Modesto. He said, what for? I said, I want to know how long it takes to go from, if we ever get across the Bay Bridge, that is, how long does it take to go from the other side of the Bay Bridge to Modesto? So he called this friend of mine in Modesto, and they said, well, it normally takes about 2 hours. It's now 5:30, and the wedding's at 7 o'clock. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that instead of the bride being the last person to arrive at the wedding, the pastor will be the last person to arrive at the wedding. Can you imagine how embarrassing that would be? And I had visions of the whole wedding party standing there and no pastor. Oh, I said this, and I'm wearing my wedding suit and all. This is my worst nightmare. I mean, this is truly embarrassing to me. I've never missed a wedding in my life. And he said, well, we'll get across the bridge and we might just make it. I said, even at 100 miles an hour. And we're not even moving. We're sitting here. He said, well, maybe if we go back to San Jose and start again. I said, yeah. Great suggestion. So that's when I decided, well, I'm not even going to go across the Bay Bridge. Why would I put myself through all that? I'm not going to make the wedding. So I said, get on the phone again and call the bride-to-be. Hopefully she won't be there and I can leave her a message. My prayer was answered. And then I called another friend in Modesto and we passed the word on, and luckily the pastor of the church was able to step in. So the wedding was saved. So we drove back to San Jose. We drove all the way back to Santa Cruz. He dropped me off at the house where I was staying with some friends there. It's like midnight. Well, we stopped to eat as well, you know. It's important to have your priorities at a time like this. And I went into the house and I'm creeping into the house. Not that my friend that owns this house creeps around the house. He's a surfer. And He knows that I'm not a great lover of cats. So they lock the cats, they have half a dozen cats, and they lock them in the garage while I'm staying. I sleep on the sofa in the living room. And every morning at about 5 o'clock in the morning, he gets up. He hasn't yet learned that when you open the door into the garage, 6 cats race into the house. And every morning that I'm there, I wake up and I see this figure tearing around the sofa, chasing cats, trying to catch them. I mean, you don't get a lot of sleep in this house, you know. Anyway, I got to the house and he was already in bed. His wife was sitting up. She was in tears. And I had just a few weeks earlier really ministered seriously to her husband. And as I walked into the living room, I said, "Oh, you're still up?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "What are you doing back here?" I said, "Don't ask me." She said, "How did the wedding go?" I said, "I don't know." Well, I said, "Don't worry about weddings. What's up with you?" And she opened up. And I had the most beautiful ministry. This is an old friend of mine in major pain and crisis. And all of a sudden, my mind went click, click, click. And you know what it said to me? I wasn't meant to be at the wedding. God had more important business for me to do. And according to his great providence and direction, this whole evening, which to me seemed so messed up, and I'm still embarrassed about it. I'm waiting for the bride to get back from her honeymoon before I call her. She's only got my telephone message at the moment. But despite the fact that the night was so messed up, God in his infinite wisdom took advantage of this whole situation, knew about it in advance, of course, and arranged for me to have the sweetest time in ministry with somebody that was just in absolute pain. And I looked up and I said, "You know, you are truly incredible. You have such a sense of priorities. You care so much for human beings that you actually allowed me to go through all this agony just so I could get back here at midnight in order to be able to minister your love to somebody that was truly in absolute agony." And I just lifted up my heart and I said, "Thank you for being that kind of God."